Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We're in the middle of one of the biggest, best events of the season, I'm going to say, Shanghai Masters. One to look forward to every year. And it's had a cracking start, actually. We'll get into that soon.
Really good start. Yeah, if the first day's anything to go by, Phil, we'll have square eyes than usual. We want to keep our eyes off the action. So, yeah, very interesting opening to that tournament, prestigious tournament underway. And we'll come to that very shortly, along with the rest of the snooker news and your views in this episode. You've kept us kindly updated with some fine correspondence, and we'll address that towards the end, towards the second half of this episode. And let's press straight ahead, shall we, Phil, then, and go to Shanghai, day one of the tournament on Monday. And Ali Carter continued what's been an excellent start to the season for him. Comfortable win over Q Lei 6-0, 3 half centuries for Ali in that match. And I meant to say, actually, good early chance to say it. Didn't see any live action myself, but I had a catch up with the YouTube highlights from Eurosport. They're very good. It's about 10, 12 minutes for virtually all the matches. They're a really nice way to catch up. So I did that. And Ali's got Ding Junhui next. And I was thinking that's a match that Nostradamus would find hard to call. He'd have his work cut out. Zhao Jinhao, see you chuckling away there, out of sympathy, I think, more than anything else. Zhao Jinhao, it's a real story. 16-year-old wildcard, Phil, beating Zhang Anda at 6-3. And, well, I didn't see it at all, but looking at the scoring, it seems like it was a proper old scrappy affair at times. One frame was 42 points to 30, I noticed, for Zhao. He went 5-1 ahead. Zhang battled back to take the next two. Got a bit even, well, I say bit, got even more nervy by the looks of things. Next frame went all the way to the final black. Zhao took it with an outrageous fluke. I mean, I just put it up on my Twitter feed earlier. Zhang not best pleased, but you wouldn't be if you're beaten by a fluke like that. But a hell of a win for the youngster. Really, really good story there early on. He plays Ronnie O'Sullivan next. And I have to say, Phil, I saw a great line. I love this sort of thing on the Totally Snookered Twitter account about Fred Davis and Zhao Jinhao being born almost a century apart. And Ronnie's played them both in professional matches. How lovely is that? And I was thinking, Ronnie's got a fair while to go yet, we all think. One day, it'll go to a century and over the century mark. How much does that say about the beauty of this sport, how long you can go on, and the pure longevity of Ronnie?
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. I saw that as well. Totally snookered. Lovely addition. We mentioned them before, but great addition to the scene. Yeah, incredible. And can't pretend to know too much about Zhao Jinhao, to be honest. 16-year-old. But that is a fine win against Zhang Anda, who one of the players of the last season. Although he had a nightmare at the Crucible and he started this season pretty badly, so they'll be looking to pick that back up. But yeah, no, I didn't see much of this one at all. But standard did not look great for all of it, really, to be honest. And that fluke, yeah, I think the only good thing about that, it wasn't a decider. If that was a fluke to
Oh, yeah.
decider, then that's just unimaginable. But yeah, amazing stuff. And what an opportunity for the 16-year-old to play Ronnie O'Sullivan. You wouldn't give him too much chance, I suppose, against a guy who hasn't lost in this tournament since 2016. But what a story it would be if he pulled that one off. But yeah, looking forward to that on Tuesday. We're recording this Monday night. But it's a great lineup on Tuesday, which we'll get to when we go through the next few matches.
Indeed. Now, I think it's probably a bit tacky to turn the next Tony Meo trophy into a total hype fest, like, slanging matches like they do for boxing. But let's not do that. We get on too well. People will see through that. But I have said one thing. I'm tempted to not apologise for flukes. In fact, I might go even further. Maybe I'm thinking about going further. If I've got a fluke like that one end of the match there, I won't apologise. In fact, I'll say something like, "Yeah, I meant that." So I don't know what your reaction to that is. It's fighting talk from me, but if it sells, I say if it sells a few more tickets, no one goes to watch it. But if it gets a bit more interest, a few more listens for us, I'll do it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that would completely depend on what the scoreline was and what the state of the game was. I could find that very funny or quite the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I won't do that really. That's just banter. Joy He 6, Tom Ford 3 was another match on day one of the Shanghai Masters. And century and two half centuries from C there. And well, next he plays Luca Purcell. That's the story there, really, isn't it? Which is a repeat of an amazing match in modern snooker. That won the Crucible last year, the World Semi. Luca miles behind. And I had to say, that's a match that may well have been played by the time you listen to this, because it's coming up early on Tuesday morning. But obviously a cracker. We'll reflect on it next time we're on air here on Talking Snooker. But whenever they play now, the memory banks will go back to that match at the Crucible, of course. Mark Williams 6, Wang Jinbao at 3. Well, I read some copy on this match, and it sounds like Williams didn't play that well, certainly by his standards. Breaks of 98 and 53, but that's not exactly special from someone like him in a best of 11. But it does set up Williams v Judd Trump. Now, that's a Tuesday night match in China, Tuesday lunchtime here in the UK and in Europe. And I think when we were looking ahead to the tournament, Phil, we set up the possibility of this match. I've had some immense recent meetings, and it's not a very short one. It's best of 11. Could be a real treat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Wang Jinbao, who Williams beat, is another 16-year-old, so done well to win 3 frames off Williams really at that age. But yeah, hopefully he'll have warmed up a bit and be ready for playing Judd Trump, and that's part of that great Tuesday. As you say, some people will probably have listened to this, but those matches will have probably happened by the time they listen to this. But Trump and Williams and Ding against Carter going on at the same time, and that's the session after Brissell against C and Ronnie against Joe. It's not bad stuff, is it? Get us out of this Euros funk that we're in after watching England lose there. Some good stuff to see. But yeah, as you say, Trump and Williams have played some great matches recently, and no reason to think this will be any different. Apart from I've been having a look at Mark's Twitter on Monday night, and he's suffering from jet lag, and he's up wandering around the hotel extremely early over there. But he tends to not let things like that bother him too much. I'm sure he'll be fine.
How much of a shambles were you at 16?
Yeah, it's pretty shambolic for sure.
On the shambles ometer. Yeah, I was fairly close to the top of shambles, no question. But these guys aren't playing in sport at that age. It genuinely is remarkable stuff. We would take for granted because there's so many very young players in snooker. Well, John Higgins 6, Lou Howsham 1. Well, the story here is Higgins now just 2 away from 1,000 centuries. He made a 126 and a 135, 998 now for Higgins. And I saw him say in an interview with WST that he'd love to do it here in Shanghai. He was saying no disrespect, but rather here than like a qualifier at somewhere like Leicester. And why not his match against Sean Murphy? That's the match on Wednesday lunchtime. That's very UK centric, UK and European time. Wednesday night if you're in the Far East, and I'm sure different times elsewhere, depending on where you're listening. Higgins also made 3 half centuries in that match, so really sparkling performance. And we have a bit of John Higgins correspondence later on, Phil, don't we? So we'll maybe talk more about John Lee more than we do now, then type thing. Your views coming later. And Zhao Yulong 6, Barry Hawkins 4. I rather jealously asked you whether you watched some of that, and you said you had, and just looks brilliant. This, I mean, Hawkins won the opener. Then 3 successive centuries from Zhao, 116, 128, 133. That's 3-1. He then went 4-1. Barry came back to 4-4, break a 1-4-1 along the way. Hell of a standard. And then Zhao said, I'll win it with 2 half centuries. Thank you very much. 54 and 57 to win 6-4. So performance-wise, probably maybe John Higgins would be up there. But for the actual match, that was a cracker.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I watched most of the Higgins match first, and he was sensational. Really good. Swept aside Lou Howsham, brilliant stuff, and that's a great match against Murphy to look forward to. And then yeah, it flicked over to Hawkins, and yeah, as you say, even better in terms of a contest for sure. Those 3 breaks from Zhou Long on the spin, 116, 126, 133. It's good stuff. And then Hawkins hadn't done much wrong really. He was just being not allowed to get to the table. But yeah, back to 4-4. And then Hawkins really should have won that 9th frame. there was a little moment where it, he ran out of position, sort of, but he just needed to roll in the black, and that would have left Joe leading snookers. And it just rolled off, and it left it over the pocket. And then Joe got back to the table and made a brilliant clearance of 54, really, really good to win it by a point. And then Hawkins sort of threatened to re-clearance back at him in the in what turned out to be the final 10th frame, but couldn't quite pull it off. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. And yeah, that sort of finished off what was a brilliant opening day. Really a big treat for morning viewing here in the UK. It's loads of good stuff.
Yeah, that 2-2-2 pattern is excellent. It
Mm.
just feels like they keep the drama, the sort of quality entertainment coming throughout the day, and that's yeah, just a yeah, as you say, a real treat. And well, you've already sort of hinted towards the Tuesday to come. In fact, every day is going to be great at this. It's just the quality is just there throughout. A couple of first rounders still to be played. Gary Wilson against Pang Jung Soo, and then it's Jack Jones, Cao Jin, and that's the potentially Mark. Well, it is Mark Selby for the winners. That potentially Jack Jones, Mark Selby to come. Obviously, Cao Jin's going to have his work cut out. We know that. Ronnie O'Sullivan against Zhao Jin Hao. That's a second round match. We've already teed up. Hell of a match for Zhao Jin Hao against the great O'Sullivan. Of course, wins time and time again in Shanghai. Then a repeat of Luca Brissell C. Dry from that amazing Crucible semi. Ding Junhui Ali Carter, the one that was Fox Nostradamus, coming up on Tuesday night in Shanghai time, Tuesday lunchtime here in the UK and Europe, and Judd Trump, Mark Williams. So, I mean, that's just brilliant. I mean, yeah, I think you said before, if people don't think the Championship League's a great offering for the start of the season, this sort of stuff is just mouthwatering.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's with these sort of limited field events, it's always the same. You sort of your mind's blown every time with how good the draw is, even though we know full well it's going to be all the time. There's the little warm up with these with the wild cards and stuff. You're not sure what to expect, but then it's just non-stop quality, really. So yeah, that's all good to look forward to. Then quarterfinals Thursday, semi-finals. Got a day each, Friday, Saturday. Then the final, long final, best of 21 Sunday. So yeah, we previewed it last time. Been a great start. Plenty more to look forward to.
Absolutely terrific. And did we say that Zhao Yulong's got Kyron Wilson? May not confirm that. That's also a game to look forward to on Wednesday, along with that Sean Murphy, John Higgins game. As you say, then we get to the real business end later in the week. So uh, do continue to enjoy the Shanghai Masters. One big line to emerge from there as well, Phil. The aforementioned Mark Selby, you mentioned before that he was in the field. We presumed he would return. I think we presumed that anyway, if truth be told. I think most of us hoped and thought that would be the case. Well, he's had some words to say about his obvious decision to carry on in snooker. He was casting doubt, wasn't he, on his future in Sheffield. Mark says, I had a sit down with Vicky, his wife, of course, and she said, look, I think you should carry on playing because you probably have got a bit more to give to the game. She said, maybe pick and choose a bit. Don't play in everything. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And Mark says, I'm going to give that a go and see what happens. Well, we will see what happens, but I think Vicky's understating it there potentially because knowing Mark, he may not have a bit more to give, but quite possibly a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if that was a direct quote from Mark from Vicky, but I'm sure she didn't say it like, "Oh, I think you've probably got a little bit more to give, Mark." Because yeah, I agree. You could see him winning anything still for years to come. Yeah, it was hard to hear him say at the World Championship talking about how much he was struggling, and sort of it was an interesting thing he described. So it sounded like the mental yips, really, in terms of knowing what shot he wanted to play, wanting to play it, but not being able to get down and play it, and walking around the table, not being able to assess a load of other shots. So it sounded pretty uncomfortable for him. And maybe this is the right thing. Don't flog yourself traveling all over the place with a really busy schedule. Play here and there when you want to, and see how it goes. Because yeah, his best is never too far away. It wasn't that long ago he was whitewashing Ronnie O'Sullivan in a ranking event, and playing as well as he looked like he'd ever played. So yeah, it would be no surprise to anyone if he won sort of any comp he was in this season. But good news that he's still in. Obviously, that goes without saying. That would have been really sad if Mark Selby decided to hang up the cue. So yeah, good news.
Yeah, it would have been a huge blow, actually, wouldn't it? It would have been almost getting one for a sort of seismic blow for the game, actually, because he's got so much more to give for so many years. And yeah, it's brilliant. And looking at that interview, he said what loads of them say, but he's won so much and so much of the biggest stuff. You really understood what he was saying. You get those highs, you want it more and more. And I think he was kind of suggesting that's why you play more and more. But now you have to be a bit more careful and like a lot of those greats of getting to a certain age, be a little bit more selective. Not for everyone, of course. Stuart Bingham plays in everything. Some guys, no matter what their age are, but everyone's different, and maybe that you know slightly more condensed schedule for him, missing the odd event here and there. We'll see, but he seems to be in a better place than he has been certainly. Just from looking at him that interview, which is as you say, great news for all concerned. Well, more interesting news, Phil. You spoke to the WST, haven't you, about the ranking event that we mentioned last time we were on air that's due to be held in Hong Kong in 2025, and generally about the future direction of tournaments and where they're going to be played. And it sounds like the heading away from the UK is a trend and a plan that's going to continue if it's up to WST in the years to come.
Yeah, that's certainly their idea. I think they've said sort of similar stuff for a while, but that certainly seems like more of a firm plan that they're trying to balance it out as much as possible between sort of half and half, UK and overseas, as it were, and maybe even lean the majority being abroad, which is we're very very spoiled over here, and that some UK fans will see that as a negative, but it's not really for a global game. The biggest events will almost certainly still be here, but yeah, the sort of vibe was that if the smaller events could be moved to make them much bigger elsewhere, then why not? And the Grand Prix would be a great example of that in terms of it's moved around a lot, hasn't it? It's been Leicester and Cheltenham and Milton Keynes, like everything else was, Coventry, I think. Fine venues, but if they can go and stick it in Hong Kong in a 10,000 seat brand new stadium, then that is an upgrade, isn't it? By anyone's money. So, there was talk about just conjecture really about other of the relatively smaller tournaments on the calendar, if they could be sort of moved around. The home nation series, maybe that would be a European series, and the English Open would become whatever, I'm making it up, a Helsinki Open, and look into different markets and try and grow the sport and expand it globally, which is what people have been calling out for a long time. So it was nice to speak to someone at WST and then to be singing off the same hymn sheet, as it were. So yeah, as regards to that news last week when we just sort of seen that first thing about Hong Kong, it is the Grand Prix as we know it, but that would be moved over there. But it did sound like lots of things are still being discussed though. ITV in discussions as to whether they'd still host it. They were hopeful, WST, but it wasn't confirmed. So we'll see. But yeah, they were confident enough to talk openly about wanting to put the Grand Prix in Hong Kong, that being the plan, although it's not fully confirmed. But sounds like an exciting move to me.
Yeah, the ITV element's interesting, isn't it? Because they obviously would always want prime time snooker. That's their priority. But I guess they may be thinking they've got so many events now. There was precedent. When ITV first came back to snooker, I remember they did do certainly one event in China. I will remember watching it because it was characterised by quite poor crowds, actually. As does happen with all events. But I remember watching it in the afternoon. It was live from China. But that was when they were feeling themselves in a bit more. Now they're so much more established, a decade or so on. And maybe they might think, well, we're still going to have a great event in the afternoon, and it's going to have a lot of pizzazz, big crowds in Hong Kong, still going to look great. And we've got loads of other events with prime time. We can probably make a bit of a sort of compromise type thing. But listen, like you just said, I'm really speculating. It's certainly going to be an interesting development for such a part of that series to go abroad. I think is a big deal actually. Is it the middle? Is it the middle one? I'm getting mixed
First
up
one.
now. First one, of course it is. Then it's the players, isn't it? The players in the tour. So for to be Hong Kong and then two in the UK, really interesting way of potentially it running in future. And as you say, you've mentioned I saw you said, I think you said in your copy, didn't you? The English Open in Brentwood, again, speculation could be one of those that does move. We'll see. What does this mean for the home nations? It's an interesting balancing act. But I know that, listen, fans everywhere in different parts are always saying, why can't you come here? Why can't you come there? Various fans in Ireland often saying to us, we're a hotbed of snooker. Look at that event in Goss. I know it's only one day, the seniors. Wonderful stuff. We all love seeing it. But listen, there are only so many weeks in the year, logistics and what have you. Um, we know the Far East is an important market. The Middle East is a growing market. So everyone wants a slice of the pie. I would like to see more in mainland Europe. I think so say all of us, really. Maybe Belgium on the back of Luca Pastel. I know it doesn't happen immediately, but things don't always happen immediately. That may happen. We're down to just the Berlin now, I think, in Germany, aren't we?
Mm.
It'd be nice to have another one there. Again, there are, easy to sit here and say that. There are often very complicated reasons, often related to money, why that's not the case. But yeah, no, I was interested to read that article that you did there. So thank you for that, Phil. And we await sort of more developments when it comes to sort of future tournaments and where they're held with real interest. We're now going to move on, actually, Phil, and talk about a news story that's broken in recent days, and I'm afraid a pretty disturbing one. I'm now going to read some copy from the BBC. Snooker player Michael White has been jailed for assaulting his partner. White, 33, from Neath in Wales, was sent to prison at Swansea Crown Court for a total of 3 years after facing 3 counts of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. The World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association said it does not tolerate such behaviour by a member and has taken immediate action to remove Michael White as a member. The WPBSA said it had been monitoring the case and had called an emergency board meeting following the sentencing. White's membership will end with immediate effect, meaning he will also be taken off the world ranking list and World Snooker Tour. Michael White has the right to appeal the decision of the board within 21 days of the decision, it said. The WPBSA also said that it and WST, and I quote here, were not a party to these proceedings, that's the court proceedings, and therefore it was not appropriate to intervene while the criminal justice process was ongoing. It also added, upon conclusion of the case, immediate action has been taken as outlined within our statement. And after the case, PC Ellen Green at South Wales Police said, Michael White has rightfully been jailed after he carried out assaults on his victim on many occasions, leaving them with injuries. Tackling violence against women and girls is a priority for us at South Wales Police. Nobody should suffer in silence. This behaviour will not be tolerated. It's clearly an awful story, Phil. It's caused a great amount of sadness, plenty of anger too in the snooker world. I don't think it's something that we need to comment extensively on. That would not be appropriate. These, frankly, are awful crimes that Michael White has committed, and there's no place for them in decent society.
No, that's right. And yeah, appalling story, appalling news. Obviously, all everyone's thoughts with the victim who has gone through a terrible time, it seems. And yeah, I think we both agreed before we came on air that there's no need to talk about Michael White as a snooker player and how good he was or anything like that. It's the only person that really matters in this is the victim and how she's doing, and hopefully she's doing well. And justice has been done, and we won't be seeing Michael White playing snooker again. Yeah, horrible story all around, and just sorry for everyone who was affected by it.
Yeah, I certainly echo those sentiments, Phil. And from that very serious and sad news story, we'll move on, and we're going to take in your views in a couple of moments' time. You've been sending us your correspondence. We appreciate that. And yeah, real nice mixture. We'll come to that shortly. We should say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. It's time for your views, Phil. We've had some crackers in. Let's go straight to it, shall we? And first to Axel, who says, hi, Nick and Phil. What a great listen your interview with Jack Jones was. I could have continued listening for another 2 hours. Don't tempt us, Phil Haigh. It was such a pleasure hearing this calm, considerate, and yet frank snooker voice talk about his career and to give it his thoughts. I'm glad I know this man better now. I'm looking forward to seeing much more of him in the season to come. Thanks for your great podcast. Hope you're not going to stop it anytime soon. Best regards from Dresden in Germany, Axel. Yeah, we really appreciate that, Axel. Thank you very much. And I love the line, I know this man better now. And I think that's great. And I think not just us, but frankly, a lot of the podcasts do this. And I really nice way of saying it. That old phrase I haven't used for a while, Phil. That's really appreciated. And I feel that just as also a snooker journalist, snooker fan, I feel I know Jack Jones a lot better now, frankly. And it's what you said, um, not even about Jack, really. I mean, who is good when you've got 3-4 minutes and you expect you to do a couple of sound bites? It's all very quick. And that's sometimes the way the TV world, the radio world operates. We have that luxury here in this podcast arena. We don't have limits on time. And, I felt he relaxed into it. He gave us loads of great stuff. And it's really nice to hear it was well received. And I want to take more than interest in him now than I was. I would have anyway. But it's that nice extra element, isn't it? When you feel like you know them, you can sort of almost enjoy watching them play more when you know more the background story, eh?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think I said this before. I think some people, not just snooker players, but people, their personalities will suit better to getting it across very quickly. I think of someone like Dave Gilbert. If you hear him in an interview or see him in a press conference, whether it's 30 seconds or a few minutes or much longer, he's basically exactly the same. And you get what he's like immediately. And that's why people like him. Other people, it's hard or they're not quite as relaxed or can't quite get their personality across straight away. So, like you say, relaxed into it and very likable character, I thought. Really glad to have him on. Maybe he'll come back again some days. We always ask people, and then we never actually invite them back. Very rude.
We don't mean it. Sorry, carry on.
I'll move on to Brian McGovern. Hi, Nick and Phil. I hope both of you are doing well. I'm currently watching Wimbledon, and it got me thinking about the coverage given it to it by the BBC. From what I can see, they give better coverage than they do for the 3 snooker events that they cover. When they cover the snooker events, they don't cover the evening sessions, yet they can be watched on the iPlayer, which is fine we're in the UK. With the tennis, there is coverage on both channels simultaneously. I know Eurosport also cover the BBC events, but to be fair, why can't the BBC put more effort into the flagship snooker events that they cover? Keep up the great work. Best wishes, Brian. Thanks, Brian. I feel like, and we're always going to be biased towards snooker, aren't we? But even in that state, Wimbledon's just on another level, isn't it? Tennis on another level as a sport globally, the popularity. I think the BBC do a really great job for snooker. I don't like to bash them in their coverage of the major events. So I've got no complaints to the BBC really. In sort of broad terms, you can nitpick about stuff, but in terms of how much coverage they give snooker, I'm not going to complain. And as much as I will always fight snooker's corner, I'm not going to really expect it to outshine Wimbledon.
You said it very well there, and I often sort of think, oh God, I'm the co-host of a snooker podcast, and I'm going to say that other events are bigger. That doesn't feel right. But ultimately, we all most of us understand sport and the nuance of it to some extent. And Wimbledon's enormous. I mean, it's just like it is one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Snooker World Championship is also a massive event, by the way, a huge sporting event. But, Wimbledon is a genuine jewel in the crown in sport, isn't it? And then, of course, you've got things that are bigger than Wimbledon. We just had the Euros. That's bigger than that, really. And, the Olympic Games is the biggest of the lot. Everything's got its own kind of level. But what I would say as well, just maybe just another way of looking at it, is a BBC and generally free-to-air television now so little tennis now. I mean, I can't think of the ITV did a very good job with the French Open for around about a decade or around about that. I think that's now gone. I'm pretty sure the BBC don't even show any of the Australian Open now. They used to do the finals and maybe big matches involving Andy Murray. That's gone, and that's on pay TV. Eurosport, I think. Eurosport got the French as well. Sky's got the US Open, as far as I can think. Maybe a bit of Eurosport as well. So yeah, BBC has a bit of grass courts and Queen stuff, mainly afternoon play. Wouldn't be on their main channel. They might have Big Davis Cup ties, Billie Jean King Cup ties, but not much really. Over a whole year, good God. I mean, we've just been talking about ITV, haven't we? And they've got about 5, 6 events now, haven't they, in snooker? 6, I think, if you count the doubles. BBC still got the big 3 plus the Welsh Open. The various other ways we can watch it. I mean, this goes down the old route of us being spoiled again. And look, BBC is on air, network television wise, might not be the biggest channels. They're number one. It's not on BBC One hardly ever, apart from Saturday afternoons, maybe the odd extra time. But it's still on BBC Two for most of the day, and now BBC Four for a lot of the evening. And in fact, I know they say they go off air at 9 or 10, but they often didn't this last year or one just gone and the one before. They'll stay on to the end of the match because I know that because I know so many top of the pop. I'm a top of the pops fan myself, and so I follow a lot of people on that. Why isn't this 1982 top of the pops edition on for bloody snooker? They'll be annoyed, which it's actually ludicrous, isn't it? Because as much as I love the music of the 1980s, I adore that. The idea that a 40-year-old top of the pop should be on and not a live sporting event is in itself mad. But then we're also mad in our way for some of the things we demand. So you sort of get it. But yeah, I know your point, Brian. Their coverage of Wimbledon is, quotes unquote, better, more prolific than their coverage of the World Snooker Championship. But then Wimbledon traditionally is not just an enormous event, it's an enormous event for the BBC. It is so huge for them, has been forever. And I've always said that's the last thing that will go. I've always thought that. And it probably never go. The Open Golf's gone. God knows what, F1 long time ago. Various other football tournaments and events. But that I don't think will ever go. It's so intrinsically linked with the BBC that's something you've got to remember as well. And they'll be very keen to butter up the All England Club and to keep that great relationship by showing immense amount of coverage where they probably haven't got to worry so much about their relationship with snooker. They probably haven't got to worry that much about either, actually. Doesn't have a great relationship with All England Club as they do with WST. But these are all sort of the nuances. But no, I get your point. But I personally think BBC do offer great coverage for snooker. But no, we appreciate you contacting us, Brian. One of our nicest fans, I think, Phil, pound for pound. He's often saying such nice things about listening to us, and I know he's a real fan, and we do appreciate that. Let's move on to Ingrid Heidi. A long time since Heidi was on television, Phil. That's one for the teenagers.
It's gone over my head, I'm afraid.
Do 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 do. Do. I can see is that one over your head? I expect it has.
No, don't know it.
It's quite a long time since that tune was heard. Hi guys and everyone at Talking Snooker. Absolutely loving the podcast. It's so fun to listen to all your guests that you have been invited on. Can you guys get Jimmy White on? Well, we talked about Jimmy, haven't we? We even made a sort of few attempts to sort of get, I think me mainly, to sort of get Jimmy. It hasn't quite happened yet, but yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it? We can't promise, but we certainly like to. Plug for my SoundCloud account. I did grab Jimmy for a few minutes during the World Championship just gone. He was particularly interesting about the exit of Bonnie O'Sullivan. Actually, he was quite outspoken about how badly he thought Ronnie played against Stewart, which he did play badly. But at a time when we're sometimes critical of maybe Eurosport pundits and the way they are with Ronnie, obviously great mate of his in Jimmy, very critical of the way Ronnie played. He was, and that certainly when I spoke to him for that interview I did in one of the corridors of the Crucible. But yeah, Jimmy, I mean, he's we say it time and time again, Phil, but he is an extraordinary character in this sport, isn't he? Still playing, of course. When it comes to telling the history of this game, that name, Jimmy White, will never be far away, will it? It's over the last half century, his influence, his name, his character has just been profound.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have him on. We get quite close ones. Is that the one where he got snowed off, where we were going to go to Brentwood or somewhere?
Oh, well, yes, but we hadn't really arranged it.
Right.
We shouldn't say this, should we? I don't think it got as far as Jimmy were doing it at 2:30. We would. I think we would have gone if that's the case. No, it was really bad snow, wasn't it? You were coming from Sheffield, and I was coming from nearer, but it was just like a nightmare. Didn't the heating go off in very snooker fashion?
Yeah, I think that was the first session everyone was watching with the coats on in the crowd. It's pretty awful stuff.
I think we may have had we'll see Jimmy and we'll try and grab you, Jimmy, if we're there type thing. But we were even going to do maybe a 20, 25 minute job if we could with adding on a bit more chat. but there's not been nothing formal.
Yeah.
That's good though. That's what you want with Jimmy, isn't it? You don't want a formal. I'll see you at 3. He's not that kind of character. I'll see you at 3 o'clock, Jimmy. You don't want that with Jimmy White. You want to sort of, we'll see you, Jimmy. We'll catch you. You know, that kind of thing. But I said it before, but the great thing is, I sometimes love just seeing Jimmy at tournament. The Masters is the great one. I often see him in that foyer, and it's sort of obvious, really, but sort of 90% of people will say, "How you doing, Jimmy? How you doing, Jim?" A lot of people call him Jim, I notice. Um, yeah, all right there, Jim. How you doing, mate? How you doing, mate? How you doing, mate? And the number of "how you doing, mates" from Jimmy is just like great, and it almost more than almost anyone else, actually. I guess Ronnie, but I don't see Ronnie so much just walking around. But Jimmy, I do, and he's just like he's a folk hero in this sport.
Yeah, and I think people would feel that they can approach him more than they maybe would think they could do for Ronnie. I think he's more authentically sort of the man of the people in that terms. So yeah, I can see him sort of nodding and waving to everyone who goes past, sharing a word. But yeah, of course we'd love to have Jimmy on at some point. I'm sure it'll happen at some stage. We'll work our magic. Um, I'll move on to Gary. The common consensus now seems to be that John Higgins is close to retirement and his days of winning tournaments are behind him. I have a feeling John will prove that wrong, and I'm backing him to win 2 tournaments this season. I think once he makes that breakthrough again after a few years, he'll have all the confidence he needs to win another. You heard it here first. Thanks, Gary. Well, yeah, if he plays like he did today in Shanghai, then not doubting that. I mean, 2 tournaments this season would be big. He's had a little while without any, but yeah, I'd be stunned if he's won his last tournament. He's still playing well enough. He only needs a good week. He's been getting so many semi-finals even without winning, and from it's only a bit of luck here and there that would have got him over the line. So yeah, I'm not sure about 2 tournaments this season, but I would think he's got more silverware to add to his mantelpiece.
That's a hell of a mantelpiece, isn't it? And yeah, that line, you heard it here first. I always a bit wary of that. I think, well, how do you know? As it happens, this is the first time I've heard this, so he's right. But they're not always right when they say that. I suppose it's more likely. It sounds a bit mean to John, but I suppose if you're a betting man, you more likely say naught than 2, but not 1 than 2, if you know what I mean. But naught, but there is credence in that, of course. It's just and I'll go even further than that. It's one of those mad things in sport where if he wins one, he'll win one 2 or 3 weeks later. I mean, it's just that does happen. Yeah, he's close. He just needs to. Listen, it happened when it happened, and that win over Mark Allen, we'll talk about for years to come. We were both there that night. It was just so special. It's a bit of a shame that wasn't deeper in a way. It was still a long way, and then I think he was affected in the next match. Well, I don't think he was. I know he was, and I think it played into that. But if he shows that that kind of form, the way he kicked off in Shanghai, of course, but it's really about semis and finals, isn't it? That's his problem. It's been painful, and some of those big leads he's had. I mean, losing finals in itself is sort of fine. I mean, it's not what you want to happen. But Ronnie lost 5 or 6 that season, which is one of those mad modern things that's kind of forgotten. But that hasn't stopped him winning great big things since. But I think maybe it's more the leads he's had. That one against Robertson was the most painful, wasn't it? Was it 9-4? I think. But listen, it happens. Yeah, I don't think it's an outrageous thing at all to say, Gary. I know what you mean about most people now. I've heard it on other pods as well lately that if you had to put money on the first to retire out of the 3 from the class of '92, it would be John, wouldn't it? Mainly because Mark's saying he'd go on forever, and why would Ronnie step down? He's still the best in the game. But there's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee of that. John's, I know he's sending interviews to me. He's got a sort of medium to long term target now for when he will retire. Almost got names and years and times when he thinks it's appropriate. Some of them linked to his family, linked to other matters. But he may find when it comes to that, him and Denise, think, wow, you're still loving it. You might not like other things in life as much. Carry on, So all to be sort of seen in the future. But no, it's a valid point, and well, everyone in snooker would love it, wouldn't they? If he won two, it would just be brilliant. We know he's back to not just his very best, but being able to get over the line. Rachel, next. I am from the UK and therefore appreciate the chance to attend so many tournaments here. But it's right that the sport is looking to have more overseas events from now. That's surely the only way the sport can grow more. I totally agree with you. And what I find, Phil, I don't know if you're the same, particularly in Sheffield, because you know, I and we all tend to be there the longest, and you have more snooker chats more there than anywhere else. But whenever I talk to fans, and mostly it will be UK fans, they all say that really. None of us want to just be here in the UK. We're not. I don't think we're parochial like that in this sport. We want the game to continue growing, and I think the only way, not the only way, but one of the best ways to do that is to go forth type thing and away from these isles, because it's brilliant that snooker's so big in the UK. We love it here. We have our own profound influence on the game, but we don't own it, and there's no reason why it can't go. Even more events in China, more events in the Middle East. Other parts of Europe. Wouldn't we love an event in America one day? More and more players are doing their tours there. Sean Murphy did a successful tour. Then Luke has been there. The women's event in Seattle's a big thing. So there are sort of little nuggets of snooker breaking through in the America, I say the America, North America. Nothing more concrete yet in terms of the sort of the main tour, but we'll see. But yeah, I agree with Rachel. She couldn't have put it better than she did, Phil. And that, thanks to your interview, we know that's the way the WST wanted to go.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people say. Although I was surprised when I posted that story that there were. I say I was surprised. It's social media. You can't be surprised by negativity, but there were some negativity saying, "Oh, this will be the end of the snooker in the UK." Maybe not that, but people whinging about it anyway. I think, do we not have enough here? Bloody hell! And at worst, they were saying, there's going to be half the tournaments here, and probably all the good ones or the best ones. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is good if spreading the wings, and if we can get to places like, Finland's been talked about a lot recently, and they had that tournament in Helsinki over the summer, and Ronnie and Gary Wilson did those 3 nights in Tampere, which is a relatively small town, and they sold out 2,000 seat place 3 nights on the spin to watch exhibitions. These places absolutely love snooker, and it'd be great to take tournaments to countries like that. And anywhere really, yeah. I've mentioned India on here before, saying I think that could be a big breakthrough market. Places that the sport's been to before, like Australia and stuff. So there's plenty of options, but yeah, it's certainly good. If we've still got half of them in the UK, then there can be no complaints from anyone over here, I think. So yeah, spreading of the wings, the better.
Yeah, I think so. And thank you for your correspondence. And I know it sounds glib when we say it, but we do mean it. Particularly in the summer, we sort of need it really and really want it. So talkingsnooker@yahoo.com, or tweet us at talkingsnooker@yahoo.com, or tweet us at talkingsnooker. A couple more lines. That we've had the draws for the Xi'an Grand Prix, the British Open, and the Wuhan Open. Details you can find on the WST website. We know the British Open is that FA Cup style draw, Phil. So that's thrown up a few intriguing ones.
Yeah, three that stood out to me straight away. Mark Allen versus Gary Wilson, first rounder. Judd Trump versus Rob Milkins, and Mark Selby against Pang Zheng, all in the first round. Stinking draws for those guys, really. It always happens to someone who gets really hard first rounders. I remember that first year when it came in, Selby got Murphy.
Yeah.
So Selby doesn't get good ones all the time. But he got to the final last year against Williams, didn't he? So, but yeah, no, good stuff. It's been a really good reintroduction to the tour, the British Open, and that FA Cup style draw has really helped with that. So yeah, bad luck for those guys with those tough draws, but it's great for the fans. And
Oh yeah.
I'll say about the qualifiers, that is a little chunk of qualifying, those three all next to each other. Starting on the 25th of July until the 3rd of August, goes Xi'an, then Wuhan, then British Open. And you really want to be playing well then, because if you head there with bad form and lose 3 matches, then a huge amount of money you're missing out on, and then a huge gaps in the calendar later on to come. So lots of people will be practicing hard ahead of that to get themselves into, well, ideally 3, but certainly not none of those tournaments, because that could be a real stinker for your season if you do badly that week.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and it will happen. There will be guys out of form. They're thinking, I'm out of form at the wrong bloody time here. I'm going to miss weeks. And as you say, that 32 event, 32 player one, that they all legitimately will have their sights on. That can be damaging early blows for the prospects of getting into that potentially. Well, Ollie Lyons has won a event, the pink ribbon event at the Landy Woodley. You very kindly reminded before we went on air that we should mention that, beating Elliot Slesser in the final. It's not been held for a few years, has it? But it's been, I presume, because of COVID, and then it never got back off the ground after. But lots of top players there, including our new world champion Kyron Wilson. So it takes some winning, Phil. And by all accounts, it was a great event. I must get down to the Landywood one day. I've only heard great things about it. And but well done to Ollie Lyons. We have been talking about. Got to try and get him on here sometime, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Congratulations. That's no mean feat to win that charity event for a very good cause, the Pink Ribbon. Yeah, Kyron was in that. Gary Wilson was in it. Stuart Bingham, obviously beat Slesser in the final. As you said, Sanderson Lamb had a 147 in that comp. So yeah, high standard of stuff and good stuff from Ollie Lyons. He's one of those players that yeah, he's been making progress, steady progress, but I think he's got the potential to kick on much further. And something like that could help kickstart that. So yeah, congratulations to him. I watched a bit of the final on the Facebook. That was good stuff. Landy Wood had that streaming live for free. So yeah, nice bit of bonus snooker when there wasn't much else going on. So yeah, congratulations to everyone involved. Looked like they put on a great event there, and well done to Ollie.
Yeah, indeed. Echo that. Well done to Ollie Lyons. We had Peter on here one day, didn't we? A few years ago now, but we'll hope to extend that and get Ollie on Talking Snooker sometime. Well, Phil, I think it's any other business time. You mentioned it already. Euro 2024 is at an end. Well, it seemed to go on forever, didn't it? I was saying on social media, I think flared trousers were still in fashion when Germany v Scotland was played. I mean, that wasn't the same tournament, surely. I mean, heavens above. We had a final, didn't we, between Spain and England, and it takes some getting your head around because for decades and generations, England haven't been in finals. To now being two in 3 years, it's a strange one. It really is. Great tournament winners, Spain. I saw a friend of the podcast, Colin Murray, I think it was on Twitter, say that they were perhaps the best ever tournament winners. I think there's a case for that, because I saw they're only the second team to ever win 7 games out of 7 in tournaments of that format, the ones that had the last 16 off the group stage. The other ones were Brazil at the '02 World Cup. And they never had anything like the run Spain have had here. I mean, Spain beat Croatia and Italy in the group stage, and then Germany, France, and England in the knockouts to win it. That is a mighty effort. And I know we're speaking on air, and we're generally speaking from the same hymn sheet. England didn't perform, did they? Really, it was in a lot of ways, which is a funny comment when they got so near to winning it. But performance-wise, it was the worst of Gareth Southgate's 4 tournaments. But of course, he deserves great credit. He's done a brilliant job overall. I've used that word unimpeachable a few times. I think his record makes him pretty much that. So it's his call. But I think it's probably time for a change now, Phil, because I think 4 tournaments is a lot. And I think, it's such an exciting group of players, very exciting, especially the forward players. And it will be, maybe fun and exciting to see what someone else can do with that. But you can't take away Gareth's record, can you? We've had all those years, decades, with so few semis and finals, and he's reached two finals and a semi-final in 6 years. So hats off to him. He has to go down as one of England's best managers, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he's done an amazing job. Could it have been better? Of course, but I think the people you get these people saying that anyone could have done what he's done with those players and the draws he's had. It's just not true. I mean, anyone who knows football, anyone watched any football knows that is not the case. And the idea that there was some other manager knocking around who could have waltzed in and just unleashed this sort of wild attacking potential that they had, and we would have thrashed everyone on the way to 4 major trophies. Just not true, is it? Or maybe it was, but you've invented that situation if you believe that to be fact. Yeah, I mean, we were in a real state when he took the job. Um, no one wanted it. He didn't even really want it. Um, that semi-final in 2018 was completely out of the blue, and then they've built on that really well. Yeah, he's frustrating at times, and some of the games of this tournament were shockers, really. But I think it's sort of a hard to quantify thing, but the way he's turned it around and built a sort of club spirit within the country's, the international team, has got to have something to do with the fact we were scraping through those games and carrying on in the tournament.
Mhm.
Um, when in the past, I don't think we would have done, even though we weren't playing well. Because I think we did play well later on, played well against Holland, at least in the first half. First half of the final, I thought we did play quite well. Um, just narrowly fell short. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's time for someone else to have a crack at it, depending on who that is. I mean, my dream would be Jurgen Klopp. If they could persuade him to do it, they should give him whatever he wants. Don't know what he would want, but you're going to wrestle up, dig deep. Um, Other than that, maybe Eddie Howe would probably be my first choice. But yeah, no. But if Southgate does leave, then congratulations to him, having a great time. It's been easily the most enjoyable spell as an England fan watching the team, sustained success. Um, so yeah, I think the country owes him a debt.
Yeah, I mean, it did get a bit toxic this summer, which is a shame, really. I felt he'd leave after Qatar. I was almost certain he would. I said it. I said, "Oh well, I think he'll go now. I think three tournaments is about the time." I was really, really surprised when he carried on. And there's part of me that wishes he sort of hadn't, because he wouldn't have had this sort of toxicity, really. Because it hadn't really built up to the level it's built up now, I don't think, had it, in Qatar. To me, it seems to have got worse the last 18 months, 2 years. But again, some people said to me that, you seem to have changed your tune a bit. And normally that sort of thing I'd sort of, red rag to a bull. What, as journalists, but actually I sort of think I maybe have a little bit. But it's a fluid situation, and I don't think I was prepared for quite how unwatchable England were at this tournament, actually. But listen, England fans happily took unwatchable all the way to the final, if you get my drift. And they got through, and you're right. That Bellingham moment, okay, it's a brilliant moment from a great player, great young player. But there's a spirit. They obviously love Gareth. They love that. They foisted such a togetherness among them, and that was really impressive. And of course, he's done many things that are tactically very impressive, but I think the very, very top level managers are a different class. And that's fine, because, there are not many of those, but you feel when the chips are down, they may have made a difference. I mean, Klopp will be, I'll be very, very surprised if he does it, but we'll see. It'll be a hell of a call. I saw one of the journalists saying they should refinance Wembley to make that happen, but we'll see. Eddie Howe would probably be the best of the English candidates. I agree with that. The Newcastle manager, they'd be sick to let him go, but I'm sure. But yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. But yeah, not a vintage tournament for me. I've had a few thoughts actually. I've got to put up on my SoundCloud on the tournament, so you might want to follow that. Not vintage for me, but had its moments. But I think it's difficult after a long, hard season, isn't it? That's one of the things. Qatar, for all its faults, including morality reasons, the football was very good, actually, at times, wasn't it? Whereas I felt this sort of slipped a bit. Well, it's not a football podcast. Maybe one more word from you on that, and then we'll move on. But I just felt that a lot of the games, not just England, were hard to love at times. And I think that maybe fatigue factor. We play too much, especially in this country. We play far too much football, and that has to be a factor.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I think I felt like maybe I missed a few of the games in the group stages because some of
You've
them.
been busy. You've been busy. Sorry, we understand.
No, well, no, I haven't really. I've been just doing a lot of time sat at home, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the group stages were great," and I just kept missing them. Or the ones I saw, there were some real duds. A lot of negative play. That wasn't just England that was sort of obviously the scrutiny is nowhere near the same on other countries than the country you're in, but France were really dreary, dreadful stuff, as bad as us, in terms of negativity and not getting the best out of some really good attacking talents. I mean, I don't know what Portugal were doing with their Cristiano Ronaldo plan. They've got as good a squad as anyone. So yeah, the stick that England get, Southgate gets specifically. He got further than those countries who were also having a stinker. So he deserves some credit. But yeah, I agree. Not a classic tournament, as is illustrated by the fact England were in the final despite no one thinking they were any good. But yeah, the one thing everyone agrees on though, Spain were absolutely superb throughout and thoroughly deserved it.
Yeah, exactly. I did mention that to a couple of people actually about the stuff Southgate gets, but a couple of wise judges were pointing out that actually Deschamps getting pelters in France. He's getting
Yeah.
rotten fruit thrown at him, figuratively, and also, you know, Martinez, the Portugal manager, is getting a lot of stick back home there. So obviously we're feeling more here because we are here in the UK. But anyway, that was the Euros. Goodness me, what a tournament it was in terms of length. It seemed to go on forever, but it certainly kept us entertained over recent weeks. The great summer of sport continues, Phil. We just had 2 weeks at Wimbledon. The Open Championship is next. That's at Royal Troon this week. And then next week, the Paris Olympics underway. Loads going on. And very much included among those treats is, of course, the remainder of the Shanghai Masters. And we'll obviously enjoy it loads. We've already, been appreciating the fine start of the tournament. And it's a real shot across the bows, isn't it, from a player to their rivals to win this, especially now it's in this slot. Championship League's one thing, smashing win for Eddie Carter there to kickstart his season. But to win this, a player's really saying, I'm in great form. I've beaten a lot of my peers here. And it must get your season off to such a welcome start if you win this type of level of event in July.
Oh, big time, yeah. Yeah, it is really one of the standout events on the calendar. Just watching it today, it just looks great.
I thought that.
All the black setting and the black carpet look very sleek, I thought. And yeah, whoever has won it, it's like any of these sort of top 16 events. There ain't no such thing as an easy run to the final or to the trophy. You've beaten top players all the way through. So you're right in saying, yeah, whoever wins it, and it's normally Ronnie O'Sullivan, will feel good about it. But I mean, what a story either way. If he wins five on the spin, that's insane. Whoever beats him, that's a huge story. So yeah, really enjoyed the first day and looking forward to the rest.
Absolutely. And whether you're listening to us early as we're recording on a Tuesday morning or listening to us later in the week, I'm sure you'll continue to thoroughly enjoy the tournament. I thought it looked good as well. I'm glad you said that. A word I don't like using too often, Phil. It's got gravitas. The sight of it and just the sheer quality of the field and the length of the matches, it's got real gravitas, this event. So to everybody I know out there, you'll continue to enjoy the event. Well, we're going to go, Phil, but before we do say our farewells for this episode, I do want to send out a message of sympathy to the racing commentator and broadcaster John Hunt. Some stories are just beyond our understanding and comprehension, and this is one of them. All any of us can do really is to offer up our love and support for John and his family, our deepest condolences for the loss of Carol, Hannah, and Louise. Words are totally insufficient at a time like this, of course. This is just a wish from me and from us, and I know countless others, that you can somehow, amid such deep sadness, find peace. That was the latest episode of Talking Snooker, and a gesture that was previously the most pointless in broadcasting now has a little bit of meaning. And I say a little bit because I notice our views are so far in the dozens. Let's not do us down. We're new to YouTube. We're not breaking into the Barb top 10 or 20 viewing figures yet, but we're doing okay. It's not so pointless anymore. So I salute you and say thank you very much for your company, Phil, and look forward to next time. And you've been having snooker with cornflakes yet? Your
Yeah, well, my still new. I don't know when he stops being newborn. He's just over a month old now, but he wakes me to watch the snooker of the morning. It's very good of him, actually.
That's very useful for Far East events. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've watched a fair bit this morning. I'm sure I'll continue for the rest of the week. But yeah, no, he's very prompt to get me awake to watch the early morning snooker. So thank you to Rufus. But yeah, no, we've mentioned it a few times today. I love having the events we wouldn't have it all the time. We're treated to prime time a lot of the time, but it's a nice treat in the morning sometimes. So yeah, good stuff. Lots more good games to come. And yeah, I'll salute you back, sir. And thank everyone for listening and watching. Speak to you soon.
Indeed, keep your thoughts coming. Talking Snooker at yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. And we'll look forward to your company next time when we know who's won the Shanghai Masters. Won't it be exciting finding out how they go about doing that? For now, though, from your old friends, Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.